Good afternoon, members, officers, and any members of the public who are viewing this on live stream. Welcome to this Employment and Staffing Committee meeting. My name is Councillor William Jackson Wood, and I'm the chair of the committee. Can everyone present in the council chamber note that everything on your desk, including your laptop screen, is likely to be broadcast at some point? And the camera follows the microphone being switched on, so councillors and officers are advised to wait a couple of seconds before speaking, just to allow the camera to catch up. Can those participating in the meeting via live stream indicate that you wish to speak during the chat column? Please do not use the chat column for any other purpose. Please make sure that your device is fully charged and that you switch your microphone off unless you're invited to do otherwise. Please ensure that you've switched off or silenced any other devices so that you do not interrupt proceedings. Please use your headset when speaking and hold the microphone close to your mouth. When you're invited to address the meeting, please make sure that the microphone is switched on. When you finish addressing the meeting, please turn off your microphone immediately. Please speak slowly, clearly, and please do not talk or interrupt anybody. Committee's members present in the chamber, I will now invite each of you to introduce yourselves. Members, after I call your name, please turn on your camera and microphone, wait for a couple of seconds, and then say your name so your presence may be noted. As I mentioned earlier, my name is Will Jackson Wood. I'm the member of the Shelford Ward. My vice chair is Councillor Sally Ann Hart.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Sally Ann Hart, and I'm one of the members for the Melbourne Ward.
Thank you. Councillor Anna Bradman.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Councillor Anna Bradnam. I'm one of the members for the Milton and Waterbeach Ward.
Councillor Mark Howell.
I think you've already introduced me, Chairman.
Councillor Richard Stobart.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Richard Stobart. I'm one of the members for Girton Ward, that includes Madingley and Dry Drayton.
Councillor John Williams.
Good afternoon, Chair. I'm John Williams. I'm one of the members for Fenditton and Fulbourn Ward, and I also happen to be the lead member for Resources.
Thank you. I can confirm that this meeting is now quorum. We have the Head of Transformation, HR and Corporate Services, Jeff Membry, in person with us today. Jeff, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, Jeff Membry, Head of Transformation, HR and Corporate Services.
Hey, Jeff. We will also be joined by a number of other officers throughout this meeting. So the first point for today is apologies. Sorry, can I ask our Democratic Services provider, Lawrence Damery-Homan, who is joining us virtually today, are there any apologies of absence today?
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, everyone. We've not received any apologies for absence today.
Thank you, Lawrence. Second point is declarations of interest. Do any members have any interests to declare in relation to any items of business on this agenda? If an interest subsequently becomes apparent later in the meeting, would you please raise it at that point? Is there anything to declare at this stage? Great. Thank you very much. So we then come to minutes of the previous meeting. Are members content to approve the minutes of the meeting of the committee held on the 10th of November 2022? Oh, sorry, 1 second. Councillor Bradman, did you want to make a comment?
Thank you. Yes, it's a really small thing, just a typo that has happened at the very beginning of the minutes, just immediately prior to the words South Cambridgeshire District Agenda Item 3, which is the minutes. There is a stray N. I think it's there accidentally, and it may not appear if these were printed, because I'm not quite sure whether that's part of the bit that would be on the web page, but just to let you know.
Sorry, just bear with me. So I just need to go and scroll down to look at that.
It's on page 5.
Oh, okay, yeah, I can see.
I did momentarily wonder if I'd put it in there myself, but I actually picked the paper minutes up 2 different ways and it was still there, so I'm sure that can be removed.
Okay, so do we actually need to get that, and what we do need to get that amended?
I'm sure we can approve the minutes with that amendment.
Yep. Okay, so with that amendment, are we okay to approve?
Agreed.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, our next item is update on the 4-week trial. We have our Chief Executive, Liz Watts, which is joining us virtually to present the report.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, committee. Can I just check you can all hear me?
We can indeed, thank you.
Brilliant. I do apologise for not being there in person. I'm at the District Council Network conference, so I just couldn't make it this afternoon. So I'll just do a very brief introduction because I know a lot of members came to the member briefing that I did on Monday evening. What you've got in front of you in the report today, members, is the data from January for our performance and the pulse or check-in survey health and wellbeing data. I would suggest that this is very early data, and so I don't think we can draw any sort of robust conclusions from it. But broadly speaking, I think the direction of travel is positive in terms of performance and health and wellbeing. It has been a huge change for the organisation, and as I said on Monday, the cultural change has probably been bigger than we expected, but in a very positive way. So people have really embraced measures to enable them to become more productive so that they can perform their work in fewer hours. So, Chair, I'll leave it there because I'm sure you've all read the report and I'm very happy to take any questions. I should say I've got a slightly ropey connection.
Thank you very much, Liz. And we really do appreciate you dialing in remotely when you're at a conference. So thank you very much for that.
No problem.
Do we have any questions for Liz on the progress of the 4-day trial? Councillor Anne Bradman?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to congratulate, it's not really a question, but I just wanted to congratulate the officers and the whole team for the preparation that you did prior to the trial, because that set in place the small thing of auto-signatures, which had identified when an individual member of staff who you might have contacted, which was their non-working day, and who to contact if you happen to have contacted them on their non-working day. And that in the situation that I was in meant that I did get a response from the person covering that person's absence. And just what I wanted to reiterate was the fact this, to me, has developed a really collaborative culture, an even more collaborative culture amongst our officers, to enable somebody who's off work on their non-working day perhaps not to be landed with a whole pile of work when they arrive back their next working day. And the whole, I do feel that we've got a real change, a real sea change in the way people are feeling about their jobs. And I just wanted to congratulate the Chief Executive for her foresight in sort of championing this, because I think it's going to make a real change in the way we work. And I wanted to say thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bradman. So we have with us Councillor Heather Williams in the chamber, which I think would like to make a comment.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to speak. It's just a couple of questions and observations. So first of all, on page 12, it says there are no financial implications for the trial. I just wanted to clarify, because my understanding is we were going to be doing more sort of check-ins and surveys with staff as to how they are, and that normally does come up at a cost, and we normally bring in people from outside. I think through various budget papers I saw an increase in the amount of spend. So just wondering whether that's something separate, whether that's routine or whether we're doing extra and whether there's cost attributed to that. Then, Chair, on page 14, on business rates collection, on the RAG rating, on the colours, it's got 77 amber, 84 then in red, 93 which is higher than in amber. So I'm just wondering if that's because a threshold has changed, for example. And then on page 18 and on page 20, I'm assuming it's, I'm pretty confident it's an error, but we should really get that minuted, Chair, that strongly agree is twice. Now, I appreciate we want good results, but I think to have number 1 and number 5 as strongly agree on 3 different occasions may not improve the accuracy of our data, Chair. So whether officers want to reflect on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Liz or Jeff, would you like to make any sort of comments on those points at all?
I can answer on the survey, if that's helpful, Chair. We do schedule in staff surveys on a regular basis anyway, Councillor Williams. What we've done is just arranged the surveys for last year and for this year to be just before the start of the trial and just after the end of the trial. So they would have happened anyway, but we've just changed the times in which they run. So there's no additional costs in relation to the surveys. I can't answer on the other points, perhaps Liz is able to.
Yes, Jeff.
Thank you, Chair. So you're absolutely right on the last question, Councillor Williams, that should say strongly disagree and strongly agree. So apologies for that. On the business rates, just looking at that data, so the actual is the column in the left, target is the middle column, and intervention is the right column. So if you look at January actual, it was 93.8%. Target was 95%, and intervention is 93.59%. So it's just tipping into amber. Actually, it looks like December maybe 84.5 and 84.57. I think that maybe should have been amber as well, December figures. But I'll go back to my colleagues in policy and performance and just double check that colour, Councillor Williams.
Thank you very much, Liz. Councillor Williams, I'm going to pull that back to you because I think you had another one.
Yes, that's what I'm clarifying, that there doesn't seem to be between the colours that are highlighted and the targets. So I do think that's what I was saying about the numbers on and highlighted the December number. So I think that probably does need to be looked into a bit.
Yeah, we'll do that, Councillor Williams. I think, as I said, or I may not say, I think I said on Monday, the data came out very quickly, and normally we'd have a lot more time to kind of go through this on a quarterly basis. So I did really rush to colleagues in performance and policy to get this data out so that we could get it into this report for you. We will double check that figure, but I mean, I don't think the colours may be wrong. I think the numbers are right, and broadly speaking, you can see there's nothing kind of too alarming in those numbers. I think is kind of the key message.
That's great. Thank you very much, Liz. Councillor Richard Stobart, you had a question.
Chair, thank you. So through you, Chair, I'd just like to pick up on a comment that Councillor Bradnam made about this kind of transformation that's appearing in the way perhaps we as members are interacting with officers. And what's intriguing, I think, is that proposals of the sort that we're seeing around the 4-day week are sometimes a catalyst for other things. And so there can be big potential in the workforce that remains untapped. And you see it occasionally, I think, in things like sort of schemes manufacturing companies operate on identifying cost-saving measures, and you can see the most spectacular things suddenly emerge. So I think this is something I'd like to underline following Councillor Bradnam's comment. There are just one or two other kind of comments and questions. I think in that presentation on Monday evening, we saw some correlations emerging, and it would be interesting to see other correlations in due course. So I know that's part of the analysis process, but that might give us some insights into what's working well and what might need a little bit of a hand to make work better, that kind of thing. There's quite a lot of good practice that's already emerged. I think even in the planning process, one of the things that Chief Executive pointed out was kind of iterative processes, such as, you know, when you're preparing a document, you might do it in draft and then revisit the draft on several occasions. And that's actually quite an efficient way of preparing things. And that's the kind of thing some people are adopting to help the speed of delivery of things to other colleagues. Then just on this, I think I referred to it as the free day phenomenon. I think Chief Executive kind of maybe agreed with that, something emerging as a surprise, the fact that Mondays and Fridays are for quite a number of people, quotes, a meeting-free day. And this represents a big change to the culture. I think often in organisations which are quite dynamic, the possibility of such open space gives freedom, to do things which otherwise would have been impossible. And I think we had some very nice feedback from both Tom and Jeff on that, which is worth noting. On good practice, yes, it would be great to have some kind of record of how that's building up, and perhaps that's part of the Bennett Institute research programme. Perhaps it's anecdotes, or perhaps it's something measurable. But in any case, that comes on to the analysis process, which I think, obviously, yeah, it's very early days, so whatever analysis is taking place is very tentative, so I'd like to note an interest in the analysis process chair and a future report. Maybe, I'd love technical detail, but it may be that something a bit technical in due course, but also addresses the main interests. So I just have one question to finish, which is, have the public expressed any more interest? I have heard anecdotes of public expressing some opinions, but I wonder if that feedback of information from the public has continued, and what is its nature? Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Stallard. That's a good point. Have we actually had any sort of formal or informal feedback from the public to Councillor Watt's question? Liz or Jeff? Liz, yeah.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. So we are collecting customer satisfaction data, and we across services we've collected that for some time in different ways. So it was only at the very beginning of the planning period in October that we decided to approach that systematically with one single customer survey that's on our website that people get when they've received a service from us. It's a very short survey that people can fill in. So we have only collected that data since October. Again, so it's really hard to use any of the January data to say, and therefore, but I shared a little bit of this at the briefing on Monday. There's a slight improvement in the January data compared to December, but I would really caution using that data to kind of, as a robust measure, because those sorts of satisfaction surveys can really go up and down every month. In terms of specifically the public expressing interest in the 4-day week, as I reported to you last year, there was a sort of flurry of responses, probably no more than a dozen, when we announced that we were doing the trial from the public, all of which we responded to. We haven't had any more since then, certainly none that have kind of been specifically about the 4-day week. Occasionally I see a little bit on social media about it, but nothing nothing significant at all. Just going back to, if I may, Councillor Stobar's request for some more kind of technical technical detail in the analysis. I think that will come at the end of the trial period, Councillor Stobart, and we're really lucky to have the Bennett Institute doing the analysis for us, and that they will be providing a more technical report on the key performance indicators, which hopefully will be useful for you. And we will certainly, I think we've talked a bit this week with members about what good practice is emerging, and I think it's really important that we record that, if nothing else, so that we can share our learning with other authorities. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Liz. And yes, I think we're very much looking forward to seeing the reports and exactly what's coming through with the outputs of the trial. Councillor Watt, did you have any follow-up points on that?
Yeah, just to reflect on that point that you know, the technical analysis is quite involved. No, I wouldn't expect anything early. You know, the research person involved really has to explore and understand. So we have to be patient about that, but in due course. And I was just wondering, again, through you, Chair, what how the relationship with the Bennett Institute is developing. Is this, it sounds as though it's going well. Does it augur well for the future, for anything else that the council might do? Be interesting just to get that impression, general impression. Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Liz. Are you able to?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been incredibly lucky with the Bennett Institute wanting to be part of the trial and help us do the analysis, and it's a really strong relationship. So there are two researchers who are working on it with me, and with Kevin Ledger, our Policy and Performance Manager. So one of them comes to our project team every week and has a real insight into how things are developing, helps us kind of look at what data are we getting already, how can we kind of refine that, where are the gaps. So for example, we've identified a gap in terms of getting specific data from managers, and so Nina from the Bennett Institute is going to help us in March run some qualitative survey interviews with managers so that we understand from a management perspective what the impact of the 4-day week is. So yeah, that's a great relationship, and I think in terms of kind of future collaboration, I'm sure there's a lot of opportunity to do that.
Great, thanks.
May I make a clarification on the business rates?
Yes.
I'm not sure whether the information that's gone out to members is perhaps different to that's in the public pack, but looking at the collection figures for business rates, in December the collection was 84.5, which was both below the target of 86.3 and the intervention level of 84.57, which is why it's coloured red. Whereas in January, the figure was at 93.8, which is below the target of 95.5, but above the intervention level of 93.59, which is why it's coloured in amber. I don't know if the copy that's gone out to members has either got different figures or different colours, but that's the final version. So the figures and colours look to be correct in the final version of the report.
Thanks, Jeff, for clarifying that. Sorry, Councillor Stobart, did you have any further points on?
No, Chair, no, great answers. Yes, thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Councillor John Williams, you had a question? No? Oh, sorry, Mark Howard, sorry. Apologies.
Of course, John Williams and Mark Howell sound so similar, doesn't it? Yes.
Identical, yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much indeed, Chairman. Chairman, like my colleague here, I'm interested in paragraph, I think it was 13, and what is said there with regards to the clear days, which are Monday and also a Friday. I remember reading a wonderful article once with regards to Professor Stephen Hawkins, who always said that the reason that he was so successful was that he didn't ever been asked to sit on any committees involving health and safety, staff Christmas parties, or any fire safety, anything like that. He could just get on with his job. And I just wonder sometimes how many additional bits and pieces that we put on to people that they could then take them away from their actual job. Admittedly, they are important for the running of the business. I don't dispute that for one moment, but actually takes them away from what their job are. And therefore, if by their attendance that actually is putting more pressure on them now, because they only have 4 days, and also they've got to fit these other committees in. So I'm just asking, I like the fact that we have the Monday and the Friday as clear days, but at the same time, should we also be looking at how we arrange the additional committees that we ask people to sit on, which are important, but take them away from their job? Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Howell. Good point. Is there any sort of thoughts on that from either Liz or Chair? Liz? Yeah? Great.
Well, I'm happy to come in there, and through you, Chair. I think that everybody is thinking more carefully now about how they're spending their time, and that doesn't mean to say that people are not going to things. But I think people are kind of asking themselves the question, am I the right person to be in this meeting? Has the meeting got a clear agenda? Is the meeting planned for the right amount of time? And everybody's asking themselves those questions now. So just to give you one example, the leadership team normally meets once a week for 2 hours. Last week we realised it was going to be a very light agenda, and so we said, well, actually everything can wait till the following week, and so we cancelled the meeting. Now, before the 4 day, we wouldn't have done that because we wouldn't have needed to. But actually, it meant that the whole leadership team of 8 people got 2 hours back each, which is more than 2 days for the council. So I think everybody now has an incentive to challenge themselves about how they're spending their time, and that is meaning that we are being more productive. I think it's important that we don't lose those peripheral roles, because they are really important, as you said, Councillor Howell, and we want to make sure that we don't simply become so task oriented that we lose the sense of the other important things in the council, even if they're not kind of core to somebody's task.
Thank you very much, Liz. Of course, yes. Councillor Howell, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, thank you. And I do think that if we can't contribute to the meeting, then we possibly shouldn't be in there, and read the minutes would be enough. It's only the shame councillors couldn't have the same attitude. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Howell. Thanks for that. Just a quick point that I've noted that Councillor Sunita Hansraj has joined us virtually, so I apologise for not noting that before. Councillor Hansraj, do you want to just quickly introduce yourself virtually?
Can you hear me?
We can indeed, yes.
Hi, so I'm Sunita Hansraj, Councillor for Histon, Impington and Orchard Park. Sorry, I'm a bit late.
Not at all. Thank you very much for joining us, and apologies for not noticing you joined earlier. Right, sorry. So back to the questions. I think we've got another question from Councillor Bradman. No? Yep.
Sorry, what I was going to say is that I looked at those figures on the business rates, and I also concluded that what Jeff Membry has said is what was meant. That the figures were correctly there and correctly coloured on the business rates. That's FS 104 on page 14.
Great, thank you very much. Okay. Good. Is there any more sort of comments or questions or follow-up? No? Okay. So the committee are invited to note the contents of the 4-day week trial report. Yep. Thank you very much. Liz, are you leaving us?
If you'll excuse me now, Chair, I need to get back to the conference.
No,
thank you so much.
Thank you very much again for joining virtually. It's very good of you.
Nice to see you all, members.
Bye. Okay, so that brings us to our next agenda point, which is the pay policy statement. The committee is being asked to consider the statement, and it is recommended it to full council. We have here Jeff, which is the Transformation, HR and Corporate Services head. Jeff, can I hand it to you?
Thank you very much, Chair. Here is the annual pay policy statement, which we're required by law to, first of all, get agreed by council and also to publish on our website after that. The committee is asked to recommend it to council, therefore. I would perhaps draw members' attention to the gender pay reporting, which is something that I know that members have expressed interest in previous years. We continue to compare very positively to the national position, where our mean gender pay gap is 10.51% in favour of females, and our median gender pay gap is 17.68%, again in favour of females, which is a reversal of the position nationally. I think shows that we are a council that treats equality appropriately. I'm happy to answer any questions that members may have.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Do we have any questions at all? Yes, Councillor Howell?
Just the one question. Forgive me if I don't phrase this correctly, but is the actual figures skewed because the top two positions are both held by females?
The main reason for our gender pay gap is that a lot of our waste operatives are paid relatively lowly compared to the other skills, and most of those are men. That's the major factor. But actually, when it comes to senior management, we do have a proportion in favour, so I'm just trying to get to the right part of the report. We do have, we have a slight larger number of females than males in the senior positions. I mean, the fact that our two highest paid people in the authority are female will of course have an impact in comparison to the others, but the biggest impact is the fact that a lot of grade 1s, 2s and 3s are male.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Do we have any other questions at all? Yes, Councillor John Williams. Sorry, I think you said your mic.
Sorry about that. If you look at the table on page 33, at the top of page 33, that explains what Jeff is saying, that we have very few females in the lower quartile.
Sorry, apologies. Which? Well, are we looking at the 1.1 and 26? No?
Yes, it's the table at the top of page 33, the agenda pack, and it shows the percentage of female and male per quartile, and the lowest quartile, it's made up of 73% male and 27% female. And then if you look at the rest of it, again, the upper middle quartile, which is not the top, then, as you say, most admin staff are actually female. And then at the upper quartile, yes, there are more female, but the difference doesn't really account for the major difference between male and female. So it is mainly down to the operatives in waste.
Good point. Thank you very much for that. Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, Chair. The reason for producing this report is a statutory requirement, as I understand, and it is obviously useful from the point of view of presenting the pay distribution and highlighting some of the points we've been discussing. But the practical use, if you will, could we explore a little bit, or my question would be, how is it put to practical use? And do we use it as a benchmark against which to compare against other district councils, for example, and how would that comparison be helpful for setting perhaps procedures and policy in the district council? So it's a question about the utility of the report, even though it has to be it's required by statute.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stobart. Do you have any thoughts on that, Joe?
It is of limited utility for a council that's already committed to operating in a fair and equitable way. What it does potentially do, though, is if things start to drift out of kilter, it will start to highlight that. Now, as things stand at the moment, both in terms of the gender pay gap and also if you look at the gap between the highest and the lowest paid, actually that gap is relatively small, much smaller than the target of, I think, 17 times the difference. But what it does do is give us a year-on-year comparison. In terms of will this make much difference to us as an organisation next year, I think probably not, but we are required to do it, and it does show the public that we're being fair and equitable in what we do.
Great, thank you very much. Did you have any comments on that, Councillor?
No, that's a good answer, thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Good. Councillor Williams.
Yeah, thank you. I'd just also like to point out that in part 6, paragraph, section 6.1, you'll see there that as a result of this year's pay negotiations, i.e. 2022, our minimum hourly rate is now £11, whereas we had a policy of it being at least £10. Our hourly rate is now £11, which I believe is higher than the city. I think the city's minimum hourly rate is less than £11. So I think that's really good for us to be able to have done that. And obviously we'll keep that under review in relation to the living wage, the actual living wage, which I think at the moment is about £10.45, I think, at the moment. But it's really good news that we are paying at least £11 an hour, which is above the Roundtree, minimum living wage for outside London.
Good point, thank you very much for noting that. Did you have any thoughts on sort of like how we monitor the pay or anything on that point, Jeff, or not?
Councillor John Williams is correct that actually what this did was move us a year ahead of most other local authority employers in ensuring that we're paying a decent wage to our colleagues throughout the organisation. We also were able to afford quite a significant increase in the amount that we paid our lowest level apprentices as well, to ensure that that they're paid at a decent wage and are not being taken advantage of. So I think actually it is a reflection of the positive approach that we've taken. And unlike many other organisations, I think it's worth noting that we haven't seen industrial action or discontent at serious levels throughout the council. So I think there's lots of positive things to read into the report, but I suppose my position is where you would expect that from South Cambridgeshire District Council, wouldn't you?
Point, thank you very much. Sorry, I should have said minimum pay, but yes. Good, thank you very much. Is there any other questions from the committee? Okay, so the committee is invited to recommend the reports to council. Are we happy to go forward with a recommendation? Yes?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you very much. Good. Okay, so we come to our next point, which is Sorry, apologies. So we just came on to the next agenda point, which is the workforce breakdown. We have with us Claire Loma-Hill, HR advisor, which is here to present the report. Claire?
Thank you, Chair. Hi, so this report is the Equality Workforce Breakdown as of 31st March 2022, which under the Public Sector Equality Duty we publish each year. As HR, we provided the employment information, which was then fed into the Equality and Diversity team as Kevin Ledger, but unfortunately he's on leave today, so I'm presenting in his absence. So if there are any further questions I'm unable to answer, I will take a note of them and follow them up. So just in a summary, you've had the report as in per Appendix A. And some sort of key points that are employees identified as Black, Asian, mixed ethnicity or other is pretty much unchanged from previously, and it represents about half of the about nearly 6%, while the rest of South Cambridgeshire is 11% in comparison. And the representation is broadly similar across all pay bands, and there's provided some examples where the biggest variations are. And our disability who've actually declared it is 9.3% lower than the 14.8% in the wider South Cambs population. However, with a number of representation is that how much is actually being monitored on a system, how much are we aware of, so taking that into account. And the biggest age category across the council is the 45 to 54, and the biggest growth has been the age 55 to 64, so up 22.6%. In the 3% of the workforce is identified as either lesbian, gay or bisexual, which is actually higher than the South Cambs population. However, as mentioned just now, 14% of staff chose not to disclose their sexual orientation, so it's based on the data that we have. So just a sort of brief summary. If you have any further questions, if I can answer them or take note to respond and speak to Kevin. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much, Claire, for that. Do we have any questions on this report at all from the room? No? Right, so, yeah, Councillor Sobot.
So I think, Chair, thank you. I think having asked the question about the practical application, this is required by statute, but does the compilation of this report help the HR processes? Does it highlight things? I mean, the data is fascinating, and it's as Jeff has said, you would kind of expect this from South Cambs, but is it helping in some way? So very similar question to the one I posed earlier, statutory requirement, but does it help our processes? It certainly helps transparency.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sobot. Claire, or I don't know who's best placed. I don't know if Jeff's best placed to deal with that as well, but
it's a similar answer. In so much as it's an annual touch point that enables us to look and see how that we're progressing. In some of the areas we are a little bit, that there's the danger of the law of small numbers, where because a change of one person can make a big percentage increase, so we have to be a bit careful around that. But the way it can be useful is, I think, well, members will remember the fact that we're putting a great deal of effort into becoming a disability positive employer, and it gives us some baseline information to be able to judge our progress year on year following the reaching of our attaining of those levels. So it's useful from that perspective. Again, it's we perhaps don't face the same challenges as some other organisations because we've generally been broadly representative of our of the people that we serve here anyway. But it's, as you say, it's statutory, so we have to do it, and we'll use the information positively. Anything to add, Claire?
No, I was just going to say is to add is that I will pass on to Kevin Ledger as well, as in we review and agree this information, how we can use it going forward, just to add to pretty much what you said, but thank you.
Thank you very much, both. Councillor Mark Hull, you have a question.
Thank you very much indeed, Chairman. Chairman, I might have missed it on this report, so forgive me if I'm asking a question which is glaring me in the face here. But when this information is gleaned, is it anonymous or is it with the person's name on the top?
Thank you, Councillor Howell. Yes, Jeff, is that going to be you? Or?
I think Claire is better.
Claire, yeah? Would you be able to
Thank
answer
you.
that?
So the information we provide is anonymous, so it's purely numbers. So we gather in HR, gather the data, which includes the personal information, and when we provide it, it's just numbers, you know, purely numbers.
Great, Claire. That's great. Thank you very much. Do we have any other questions at all in the room? No? Sorry, just to clarify, and the reason for the slight delay before we start at that point is we've been asked to note this report, but we've been asked to note this report with an amendment, but I can't seem to find reference to the amendment. Is that correct or not?
I'm not aware.
No, it's just with the appendix.
Oh, okay. No, with the appendix. Okay, right, fine. So, good. Thank you very much. Sorry, Councillor Bradman.
Just one point that's been floating around in my head, and it's to do with the number of our approach and our disability profile, which is on figure 2.1 on page 45. And I just wanted to say I think that's remarkably good, given, as we've said earlier in this committee, that 75% of our staff in our lower quartile are waste service employees who, by the nature of their job, cannot really have a disability. So given that we have that constraint on our staff, I think that's actually remarkably good that we're up to 14.8%. Is that right? Yes, staff declare, yes, 14.8% of our staff do declare a disability. So I think that's very good, even though the Cambridgeshire percentage is 16.4. Given that we have such a large number of our staff who are involved in a very physical job, I think that's doing quite well. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you for that thoughts, Councillor Bradman. Yes, Councillor Hull.
Just very quickly, are members not included in this, or are we? Is that separate?
Claire, can I ask you to?
Okay, this is purely employees.
Just to point back to Councillor Bradman, or on that thought process, is that, when we say disability, is that an inclusive point of disability, or is this physical disability?
It would be any type of disability. So although Councillor Bradman's right that often it will be physical disability, it will include mental health issues potentially and some other hidden disabilities as well.
Thank you very much. Good. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Is there any other questions or any comments in the room or online? No. Okay. Good. So again, we're invited to note this report. Are we okay to move ahead and note the report? Yeah. Great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Claire.
Thank you.
So moving on to our sickness absence, which is our 8th and final point for today. We're being asked to note this report. Claire, I think it's back to you, I'm afraid, to put you back on the spot, which you are presenting this report for us today.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, we are, sorry. Oh my God, sorry, okay, apologies. I've skipped a point with my excitement. So we've actually got the retention and turnover report to go through, which we have Bethan Gregory, which is Senior HR Advisor, which is going to present that for us. So apologies, Bethan, not meaning to skip you there, but you're right to go through the report, please.
Yes, I can. Thank you, Chair. So, as can be seen on page 54 of the report, I'm not going to talk through the whole report because you guys have had time to read it, but you can see we're under target again in relation to both voluntary and involuntary. All levers are under target this quarter, following being under target since the start of the financial year. We noted in the last quarter's report that there was a high number of leavers moving to the private sector, and we've seen that again in quarter three. One of the things the HR team are going to do is do a deep dive into the exit interviews to look for any trends within exit interview data and look at any recommendations or themes we can look at. Other than this wider move to private sector, we do have more in detail data we can look at. Following the submission of the quarterly report, one of our apprentices actually won the Working with People Award at the Cambridgeshire County Council Apprenticeships Award on the 8th of February. We also had an apprentice in housing who was awarded highly commended in the team working category as well. Since the writing of the report, we've also had a careers fair at Impington, which went down really well, with 1,000 students ranging from years 10 to 13 who might be potential future level 3 or level 4 apprentices. We've also had a small number of staff turn up to a presentation to highlight the importance of apprentices internally to managers and staff and their value and what they mean and what they can do. I also note in the minutes of the last meeting, there seemed to be a request for more live data comparisons for turnover and recruitment. Unfortunately, looking at that for this quarter, the most recent local government data produced by LGA is actually for 2020-2021 and doesn't include our region, but we are in the process of signing up to use Infinistats, which would give us local comparative salary benchmarking data and recruitment data across other councils. I think there's about 300 councils that use Infinistats. So that will be coming soon and will help us with benchmarking our roles. I also note that there was a discussion around what do we do for those people approaching retirement age. I just wanted to add off the back of that, we do also offer flexible retirement to anyone aged over 55. So flexible retirement means that they can stay in a job at less hours, start pulling on their pension pot, but also start creating a new one. So it's a good benefit that we have here to help retain that experience and knowledge of people that are approaching retirement age. And that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bethan. Okay, so move on to some questions. That's all right. Councillor Mark Howell, you had a question.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Chairman, in paragraph 10, it says there how we upskill staff now to fill the vacancies. And I just want to say that's fantastic because it's something that I've been going on about for a long time. It's very expensive to move to this area and for people to come in at whatever level. So the fact that people are already here, they're already living in this area for however that is, and we're upskilling them, that's fine. I do appreciate that later on it says that we are losing staff to the private sector. I was always taught that people move to the private sector when the economy and everything's going well, and when it's a recession, they come back to the council because they feel that that's a more safer place because we seem to be recession-proof. However, I do think upskilling is good. I do think that's the best way forward, I just want to say well done on that one. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Howell. So we have a question from Councillor Bradman.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just wanted to query on page 54 at paragraph 5. We're using the word to introduce the paragraph, the performance indicator, and that is the title of the graph. So for me, I would expect a higher number to indicate better performance and a lower number to indicate lower performance. And indeed, Beth Ann's sounded as if she was saying this was a shame that our performance was below target. But actually, what this is illustrating is the number of leavers, isn't it? What I'm saying is I'm not criticising Beth Ann. I'm just wondering if my understanding of the data is correct. Because to me, if we've got a lower number of voluntary leavers and a lower number of total leavers, that to me sounds like a good thing. So I'm just slightly confused. Can somebody explain what that is actually, whether the title of this actually is talking about leavers?
It's sorry, it's talking about turnover. So it's looking at the amount of leavers versus the head count of the council. So we have a target PI figure set by, I believe, Kevin and the policy performance team. That's the grey line. And we've been consistently under that target. So that means that we have good recruitment and retention for the last 3 quarters, because we're below target. But I know what you're saying. It's almost the wrong way around in relation to.
It seems. I'm sorry. It's just the nomenclature is counterintuitive.
Yes.
Because as you were saying, if we looked at Q3, so that's the quarter to December in 2022, we are under target. But
that means we're doing well. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Target is the point at which you get nervous, isn't it? So it suggests to me that actually as time's gone on, our performance is increasing and our turnover is reducing, which is a good thing.
Yes, we probably need to look at rephrasing that or that chart. Yeah,
I think that might be helpful. It's an interesting way of expressing it. I think it could be expressed more intuitively. Thank you.
Definitely.
Thanks, both. And yes, Councillor Bowman, I do agree. It does look a bit, to me, it looks a bit awkward. Like it looks like down is good, and so yes, you see exactly where that is. So perhaps there isn't a way that we can change that report, or perhaps just modify the way in which it's actually pulled through. Councillor Richard Stobart, do you have a question?
Chair, I do. It may be premature, and given all the warnings that the Chief Executive gave us about reaching too many conclusions early over the 4-day week, but this little, I'd call this an uptick if the data was the other way around, but an uptick in turnover performance. This is the kind of thing we might begin to expect once some of the effects and the internalisation of the benefits of the 4-day week begin to have an effect. So while it's too early to draw a conclusion, I guess this is the kind of thing that we'd be looking to see as as the bounty, if you will, of the adoption of the 4-day week. Is that a fair assessment, Chair?
I would say that certainly was one of the goals. So thank you, Councillor Stobart. I don't know if you've got any thoughts, either Jeff or Beth Ann, just on that, considering we are seeing that trend.
You're absolutely right that it's too early to make any definitive statements on this. Certainly what we would expect to see is the number of vacancies that we advertise where we're not able to appoint. We would expect to see that coming down as the effect of the 4-day week is taken. Probably that would be a stronger indicator for the benefits of the 4-day week rather than staff turnover, because that could be impacted by the fact that we, for example, had to take on extra staff to deal with the Ukrainian crisis or something like that, which could impact on that. But certainly some of the performance reporting that we're seeing here, we expect in the longer term to see improvements because of that. Is there anything you want to add to that, Bethan?
No, just a small thing that we are also updating our exit interviews to include a question around the 4-day week and whether that's had an impact on people's decision to leave. So that's included as well.
Great, thank you very much. Councillor, about any sort of follow-up thoughts on that?
I was going to ask the follow-up, Chair, as to whether there are any new metrics needed to just get below the surface of this a bit more. But I think the response that Bethan and Jeff have given say, well, the existing metrics are pretty good. Maybe we just need to look at them more closely or compound them in some way. But that's we seem to be well positioned to observe the data.
Agreed. Good. Thank you very much. Do we have any other? No? Okay, good. As mentioned before, we're due to note this report. Are we okay as a committee to note this and move forward?
Agreed.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, now, so thank you very much, Bethan. Thank you for joining us for that. Now we move on to the sickness absence report, which is our final report for the day. So this is for Q3, and we are being asked to note this report. Claire, I will now go back to you. So thank you for bearing with me on that. Can I hand it over to you to present the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. So in sickness absence, we have had the overall rates are for the depot is actually there's an amendment of 3.9 days per FTE, which is still over target, and the rest of the council is 1.6 days, which is actually below target. And we were saying that the sickness has increased for the depot and is over target, particularly due to infections such as cold and flu, which is an increase in sickness levels during the winter months is to be expected and follows previous year's patterns. So the top three reasons for the absence were infections, cold and flu, stress, anxiety, depression, and the third was cancer. In line with previous quarter reports, we continue to work closely with team managers to ensure action such as counselling, employee assistance programme, occupational health and signposting to support them, and continue with wellbeing initiatives and ensuring managers have that support at an early stage. With the actions and training taking place is a continuation of previous quarters of providing free flu vaccinations on site, health MOTs, and another thing that we wanted to add, particularly as the sort of changing of the office with zones and hot desking, to bring in hand sanitizer and antibacterial wipes, as we'll be sort of using different desks and different people will be sitting in different areas at Camborne Hall. Another introduction that HR has recently brought in is a health cash plan as part of the benefits that the council offers, and this may help with support sickness absence in that they can claim expenses such as dental and opticians, and it also gives them a 24/7 access to a GP helpline and online consultation, which in this current climate may be very difficult to get through to a doctor or see a doctor. If people wish to take this up, then that gives them that another opportunity. We have been sending out and communicating an amount of different information via email, our HR newsletters, very much brought up in Chief Executive's vlog, and also is available on Insight on intranet. And for the depot, this information is shared via managers and notice boards where they won't have as easy access to the intranet. As previously mentioned, things like counselling, mental health third aiders, wellness action plans in there. One thing I wanted to raise is we have reviewed the attendance management policy in August, and we've more recently made changes in January while the 4-day week trial is taking place. So in August, the 6-month maintenance period was removed, and informal meetings have been changed and renamed to wellbeing meetings. And then in January, we're trialling it, the changes during the 4-day week trial, that wellbeing meetings replace return to work and informal meetings. We've actually removed the triggers we use as part of the policy, because we appreciate that these can cause anxiety to colleagues, particularly if they may have a disability. That, however, managers are allowed to use discretion with their employees and how they carry out the work, and any decisions are based on individual circumstances, medical information, job role, and the impact of the absence. But if managers do have a cause for concern, there continues to be a process for a formal meeting to occur and to issue improvement targets where appropriate. At the end of this trial, absence dating and wellbeing information will help to decide whether this new way is working for colleagues and the organisation. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Claire. Do we have any questions? Councillor Anna Bramman, you had a question?
Thank you. I hadn't previously realised, it's on page 71, as Claire Lamerhill has just gone through. I hadn't previously realised that we had a menopause policy. I'm very glad that we have. It was only yesterday on Radio 4 More or Less programme, somebody questioned the number of women in the UK who are experiencing menopause and its symptoms. And somebody had come up with an amazing number of 13 million. In fact, they identified that that was incorrect. But what they did identify in that process was that women can continue to have symptoms of menopause for over 10 years. And for some ethnic minorities, the average is 15 years. So, this is something that's really important, and that there needs to be a degree of understanding of that, because I think a lot of people have had thought and have been told and have believed for a long time menopause happens over a number of years, maybe 1 or 2, and that's it. And it's not the case. So I'm really glad that we have a menopause policy, and I'd like to thank those who have been involved in that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bradman, and good points. I think, is there any points or thoughts on that, Claire or Jeff, just in response to that actual policy or not?
Can I just add, I've actually been working on this menopause myself. So I'm currently updating, looking at our policy to make sure it's suitable for where we are now and up to date, providing training support, awareness, information, and potentially we are looking at menopause friendly accreditation as an organisation. So it's very much a topic that I'm personally working on with my HR colleagues. And just to say, at the council, is if the average age is 45 to 55, 1 in 4 of our females at the council are of that age. So very much topical at the moment.
Thank you
very much.
Yes, thank you. Good. Is there any other questions or comments? Councillor John Williams.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I've got on page 75, we've got the absence analysis quarter compared to the previous quarter. I know a lot is focused on waste, but actually looking at these figures, I'm a bit concerned about shared planning because you'll see that the absence instances has gone up by 50% on the previous quarter, and the average days lost duration has gone up from about 1.9 to 11.46. I don't know if that's correct. You'll check. You obviously it is correct. Do you know any more about this? It does seem to be, from looking at the figures, it seems that there has been a serious increase in sickness in shared planning.
And this could be, if we have long-term absence, that could significantly increase the numbers. If we have 1 or 2 people who had a lot of absence, that could increase the number of days. Otherwise, I'd need to look into more detail as to why this has gone up, but it's likely to be due to long-term absence.
Because I've noticed elsewhere that our spend on agency staff in shared planning has gone up, and assume that's so, because of the increased cover. But I would like a bit more information about that. Thanks.
Okay.
Could we brief you outside of this meeting, Councillor Williams? We have to be very careful that anything we say doesn't breach the confidentiality of individual members of staff.
Good one. Thank you, Jeff. But yes, obviously happy to follow up on that. Yes, of course. Councillor Bradman, you had another question.
Thank you. This is just a matter of formatting. And if we just take the page that Councillor John Williams was referring to, since we're on it, page 75, I think you were on. I just wanted to ask about the way that the data is presented in the graph of variance. And I just wanted to check whether a column above the 0 line means an increase compared to what? Compared to last year, or compared to something like this quarter last year? I just wanted to know what that variance, or is it compared to what we think would happen, or is it just compared to naught if we had no change? It's this formatting of graph occurs in a number of places, and the one that I find it most difficult to interpret is when we're talking about turnover of staff. That's in a previous report, in the previous item. But here it would be useful to illustrate if somebody could explain how we read that.
Thank you, Councillor Bradman. I've got to say, I was looking at this earlier, and yeah, it'd be good to understand exactly what that variance model is based on. If you could help that.
It's based on quarter variance, so whether it's increased or decreased based on the previous quarter.
So, thank you, Claire. So, if we take the graph of variance for sickness on page 70, I think I'm on page 75, and we look at the one that John Williams was referring to, purely for convenience, we've got an increase. So, right, here we are. We've got shared planning. It's gone.
Sorry, just to interrupt, we've just got to, again, be very careful just in reference to the fact that we're the
No, I'm not trying to identify anybody.
No, it's more about just the fact that just very specifics.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's utterly general. It's just, all right, let's take shared waste. Since there's more staff in that, we're less likely to identify anybody. It's simply that the column, the bar is above 0, but it says 30, and then I don't know if that's a hyphen or a minus on the left-hand side for the point at which it's got to. And so we're saying that's 30 numbers or 30% more than last quarter.
Okay, Councillor Bradman, is it, would it be possible if we could perhaps
take it
show
offline
you outside of the meeting? What I'm asked members to remember is the version you've got is not the same as the public version, which has restricted documents. So that's one of the restricted areas. So I will gladly give you the information outside of the meeting.
Sorry, I've forgotten that.
Thank you, Jeff, for that confirmation. And yes, indeed, we just need to be aware of some of those points just when we're reviewing that information. But thank you for your question, Councillor Bradman, and thank you for the answer. Do we have any other comments or questions you want to go through on this particular report?
Am I able to speak very quickly, because I might be able to clear it up without without advising of anything?
Yes,
the easiest way to understand that chart is that if you look at the table red and green, red bad, like red it's got worse from last quarter, and it will help you identify with that chart just for looking now. So green, a green variance is a positive, so seen an improvement, and a red is seen an increase in absence. So I just thought that might help.
Thanks, Bethany. Good. Okay. Thank you very much, all. Is there any other comments or thoughts, or are we okay to note this report and move on? No. Is it? Good. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay, so that actually brings us to the close of business for today. The next committee meeting is due to be held on the first week of May. However, this is still subject to consultation, so I don't have a finalised date for that as yet, but hopefully that will be confirmed very shortly, and that will be sent out. So thank you very much, committee. Thank you very much, everybody that's joined us virtually. Very insightful, and I'm hoping to bring it to a close.